Hello and welcome. You have tuned into Market Cafe right here on ET Now. I'm Srishti Sharma and this is the show, viewers, where we in the next 1 hour prepare you for the trading action for the Indian markets. Not to tell you that what's big happening globally, but in the Indian markets, which are some of the big triggers that you should be watching out for. There are earnings, there are stocks to watch. We'll discuss all of that in the next 1 hour. So let's get started and let's start with the global checks. And firstly, from the US markets, interesting moves over there because just day before yesterday we had seen that sell-off kicking in. All these AI related counters were under pressure, but talking about yesterday we have seen a bit of a rebound coming in across all the three major indices. It was Dow Jones, S&P 500 and even Nasdaq. They were trending higher. Nasdaq gained almost 0.7%. Dow Jones was higher by almost 0.5%, and it was some of these AI related counters that did rebound in yesterday's trading session. There were some of the macro data as well, wherein private payroll data did come out stronger than expected. That boosted sentiment, and along with that, it's also the Supreme Court hearing with respect to the Trump's era with respect to tariffs, and a bit of a skepticism around that, a bit of a possibility that the traders are penciling in that there could be some rollouts or not. That is something that they're watching out for. But because of this hopes, the markets were seen to be trending higher. Some of these counters like Ford, GM, Caterpillar, they were higher by almost 2 to 4%. And some of these auto-related counters like Ford and Tesla, they were also seen to be gaining strongly in yesterday's move. So a good trading session coming in for the US markets indeed, and that sort of a handover is what we are getting from the Asian peers as well, because Japanese shares did rise on the Wall Street boost, and some of these Asian markets as well, they are trending higher. But along with that, interesting moves on the Brent oil prices as well, that are seen to be declining yet again, hovering around that $63.50 per barrel mark with a 1.5% of cut as we speak right now. It's the oversupply concerns and the weak demand that is indeed weighing heavy on the gold prices. But gold prices, they are still below that 4,000 per ounce mark. Definitely is the risk of moat as well as cryptos. Interesting moves because just yesterday, what sort of a sell-off we have seen all across the board coming in from cryptos, but a bit of a rebound over there as well is what we are getting to see. So that's about the global check, but the big story remains the Supreme Court signaled strong doubts about the legality of Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs, wherein justice across the ideological spectrum pressed the government's lawyer on whether Trump overstepped Congress's power to tax when imposing tariffs on imports from nations including China, Mexico and Canada, wherein Justice Neil Gorsuch warns the policy risk shifting too much power to the executive branch. And if upheld, the tariffs could raise to $3 trillion by 2035, wherein lower courts have already ruled Trump acted beyond his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. So that's the update on this particular front. That's the big story that we are tracking. But along with that, with respect to China, wherein the nation announced that it will lift the export controls on 15 US entities and suspend similar measures for another 16 for 1 year starting November 10. Now, the Commerce Ministry said the rollback allows Chinese exporters to resume the sales of dual-use goods to affected US firms, when Beijing will also ease the restrictions on companies previously added to its unreliable entity list, letting domestic firms reapply to trade with them. And some of the other stories is the Trump administration that ordered airlines to cut 10% of their flights at 40 major US airports starting Friday, as the record-long government shutdown cripples the aviation system, with 13,000 air traffic controllers and 50,000 TSA agents working without pay. Airports face worsening delays and long security lines, when Transportation Secretary C.N. Duffy said that the cuts aim to ease the pressure on strained staff. The FAA warned more restrictions could follow in disruptions persist, wherein airline stocks did slip about 1% after trading hours. But Trump continued to blame the Democrats, comparing them to kamikaze pilots. Let's go across and listen in.
I think these guys are kamikaze. They'll take down the country if they have to. So I don't think so. Millions of Americans are going to be without SNAP benefits. And I will say about SNAP benefits, but countless public servants are now not being paid, and the air traffic control system is under increasing strain. We must get the government back open soon, and really immediately. We have to get it up. We have the hottest economy we've ever had, and it's affecting the stock market now a little bit. But the stock market, as of Friday, has hit many record highs during the last 9 months, many. And it will again. This is just the beginning, because when these plants that are being built right now start opening up, we've never had anything like this. There's a boom. There's a construction boom right now, but that's going to be bigger than that.
All right, but let's shift focus to some of the global earnings then. And McDonald's missed the Wall Street's earnings expectations, but same-store sales did rise by 3.5%, to be precise, 3.6% jump in the third quarter, led by a 2.4% gain in the U.S. Now, CEO said that the results prove the brand's resilience even as the lower-income diners cut back spending. The company warned the spending slowdown among lower-income customers will likely continue into 2026, even as higher-income traffic remains strong. And DoorDash shares plunged after the food delivery giant missed the third quarter earnings expectations and warned of heavier spending ahead. Now, the company earned around 55 cents per share versus the 69 cents analysts predicted, through revenue rose 27% to $3.45 billion, wherein DoorDash said that it will pour several $100 million into tech and new initiatives into 2026, including its DOT, autonomous robot, and a global delivery platform. The company also completed its $3.9 billion acquisition of UK-based Deliveroo earlier this fall. Now, what could be seen as a big jolt to Donald Trump's administration in the U.S., Democrat Zohran Mamdani in the historic first wins the New York City mayoral poll. Now, this is the first time an Indian-American, Indian-origin, African-born and Muslim is chosen as a mayor of United States' largest city, where Mamdani is also the youngest leader to be elected as mayor since 1982, and he's the son of Indian-American filmmaker Meera Nair and Ugandan-American academic Mohammad Mamdani. And in his winning speech, Mamdani said that New York's a city of immigrants to be led by an immigrant. Let's listen into an excerpt of his speech, where he also quoted India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru as well.
Standing before you, I think of the words of Jawaharlal Nehru. A moment comes but rarely in history when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance. Tonight we have stepped out from the old into the new. So let us speak now with clarity and conviction that cannot be misunderstood about what this new age will deliver and for whom. As long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power. And yet, over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it.
All right, moving on to another story. And as India-US trade talks move forward, White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt confirms that the US President Donald Trump often speaks with Prime Minister Modi, and that the US President and his trade team continue to be in a very serious discussions with India. Let's go across and listen in.
He feels very positive and strongly about it. As you know, he recently, a few weeks back, spoke to Prime Minister directly when he celebrated in the Oval Office Diwali with many high-ranking Indian American officials here at the White House. We have a great U.S. ambassador to India in Mr. Sergio Gore, who will represent our country very well. And the president and his trade team continue to be in very serious discussions with India with respect to that topic. So I know the president has great respect for Prime Minister Modi, and they speak pretty frequently.
All right, but for this viewers, it's time now to slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the other side. Welcome back to Market Cafe right here on ET Now. And now let's touch upon what sort of movement we are getting to see in some of the Asian peers. And it's indeed a decent day coming in, because just yesterday, what sort of a sell-off that we have seen in Kospi as well as Nikkei. While Indian markets were shut, but Kospi and Nikkei did fall more than 3%. And at one point in time, Kospi was down as much as 6%. But today morning, a bit of a rebound over there. Nikkei is up almost 1.5%. Even Chinese market, that is holding up quite very well. It's Hang Seng and Shanghai. They are still trading in the green. Let's also touch on what Kospi is doing right now. And there too, we are seeing decent up move. Almost, I guess, 1% of the gain is what we are getting to see. Along with that, Hang Seng as well, that is also holding well. Shanghai on your screen, 0.4% gain coming in on that particular index. And along with that, let's also have a quick check on the Australian market as well. ASX 200, I believe that too is trading in the green with almost 0.3% gain as we speak right now. And that sort of a movement, quite a muted action is what we are getting to see on the GIFT Nifty as well, implying a green opening, but with a minor gains of almost 28 odd points. Do remember that day before yesterday, Nifty did slip below that 25,600 mark for our markets. But for today, let's see how the action pans out. But the weakness is definitely something that we are getting to see on Dalal Street. Not just the Nifty, but Nifty Bank, but even the broader markets were seen to be mirroring the key index with individual earnings-led moves in the markets, wherein all key sectors did trade with cuts with defense, metals and IT. They were losing the most back then with over 1% of the fall. Let me take it across to my colleague Snehi, who joins in with more market highlights. Snehi.
Well, yes, overall a tepid day of trade coming in for the market. Once again, a pullback from the day's high, about a 190-point cut from the day's high on the spot basis, and overall 160 points lower for the Nifty. Did not even manage to hold on to the 25,600 mark. In fact, ended very close to that at 25,597. Sensex too, similar cut coming in of about 0.6%. The advanced decline ratio swung very steeply in the favor of the declines in the second half of the trading day, due to which we were seeing pressure on the broader indices as well. If you take a look at the mid-cap space, that was lower but slightly better than what the benchmarks were doing, but it was the small cap space that was seeing the steepest cuts, up down by 0.8%. It was names like Hero Moto that continued to maintain some pressure on the Nifty. On the flip side, select names and earnings like M&M, SBI, they continued to keep the Nifty afloat. But if you take a look at some broader market earnings, and before that, if you take a look at some sectoral moves, it was IT and metal through and through under pressure, followed by FMCG, pharma. All of those sectors did not do well at all. Nifty PSU banks, yes, closed in the red, but saw the least amount of cuts coming in. On the flip side, Hitachi Energy, 3M India, these were some stocks that continued to do well, but there was pressure on select stocks as well, like Blue Jet Healthcare, that was lower by 10% in lower circuit. This all on the back of Q2 earnings, of course. So yes, it's been a tepid Nifty expiry for us. All eyes are going to be on how the market opens on the BSE Sensex expiry day, another day of expiry. So yes, expect some more volatility in the market, if you could call it that. But yes, all eyes are going to be on when we are able to scale past that 25,600, 700 levels, and well, 26,000 seems like a distant dream for now, but let's see when we're able to scale back to those levels.
Indeed, Snehi, another day of expiry, another actionable day is what we are expecting. Thank you so much for all those details. But a lot of action is indeed on the stock prices as well on the back of the news flow. So let's get started, and let's tell you which are the stocks that you should be watching out for in today's trading session. And firstly, let me take it across to Ashesha, who is joining with a list of counters that are going to be in focus today. Ashesha, good morning. Take it away.
Well, yes, first up, let's talk about RBL Bank, where M&M is looking to sell its 3.45% stake in the company, and the deal is likely to be valued at about 682 odd crores. On the back of this block deal, which is expected to happen today, keep an eye out on RBL Bank. Meanwhile, Hindalco's wholly owned subsidiary Novelis has reported very weak set of numbers, and across the board, several negative news pieces, perhaps because of which we could see some kind of negative reaction on the stock. First, as far as earnings are concerned, EBITDA per ton did rise by about 4% on a sequential basis, but it is weaker than what the street was working with. Remember, capex on their Bay Minette project has risen by 22%. Earlier, it stood at about 4.4 billion US dollars, and this has risen now to 5 billion US dollars, partly because of inflation and also because of project related and scale related costs that have risen in the quarter gone by. So they've increased their capex guidance, and this is likely to be a big negative for the stock. And remember, this is the second time they've gone ahead and increased their capex guidance for this Bay Millet project. Meanwhile, let's also talk about Paytm, which has reported very strong set of numbers for the quarter gone by. Higher net payment margins aided EBITDA, which has come in ahead of what the street was working with, and healthy pace of device deployment aided numbers for the quarter gone by, and fixed costs meanwhile have gone down. So Paytm, very strong set of numbers is what the company has reported. Britannia, meanwhile, positive news flow coming in. Grasim will also be in focus, and this is because Mr. Bhargave, who was the CEO of Birla Opus, has resigned, and Economic Times has reported, citing sources, that he is likely to join Britannia, and hence this is likely to be a positive for Britannia as well. Sun Pharma, lastly, on the back of the results that it reported, largely inline set of numbers. Global innovative medicine sales rose by about 16.4% on a year-on-year basis. India formulations business saw an uptick of 11%, but US formulation sales declined by about 4% YOY. So largely inline set of numbers. Sun Pharma will also be in focus on the back of this.
Thank you so much for all those details. But for this, let's also tell you which are some of the other counters that you should be watching out for. And first up, all eyes will be on Berger Paints, because the company did report a weak set in the quarter gone by, and especially look at the margins. The margins did dip almost 319 basis points on a YOY basis. 12.5% is what the company has reported, and that is below the guided range of 15 to 17%. The company cites that the extended monsoons as well as floods in the key markets did impact their numbers this time around, while the decorative volumes did grow almost 8.8% on a YOY basis. On the back of the earnings, IHCL is going to be in focus as well. It's been a weak quarter too for the company. Hotel segment did grew almost 7%, but that's sort of a muted growth is what we have seen. But the management is confident that going ahead, because of the holiday season kicking in, the Q3 has a strong demand visibility in November. Lupin will be in focus as well, as the company has received EIR from US FDA for its key facility, Pridhampur Unit 3 facility, and that remains to be in focus, because Unit 3 facility does manufacture dose inhalers, dry powder inhalers, as well as topical formulations and nasal solutions. Along with that, some of the recently listed counters will be in focus. First up is Sattvic Green Energy. Their subsidiary has won orders aggregating almost 300 crores for the supply of solar PV modules. So positive news flow over there. And even Tanfac Industries, one of the other recently listed counters, has come out with an order win announcement for supply of solar grade diluted hydrofluoric acid worth 732 crores. So let's watch out for these counters in trade today. But along with the stock-specific action that we are expecting in terms of the political developments is the first phase of Bihar Assembly election that begins today across 121 constituencies in 18 districts with over 3.75 crore electors. Now, my colleague Arunil is joining us with more details. Arunil.
Well, certainly, yes. 121 out of the total 243 seats go to polls today in Bihar. This is the first phase on 11. The second phase will be held. 14th is the result. The magic number in Bihar, basically the winning number is 122. Now coming to PM Modi's outreach to the people as well. We have, as Pratibha was pointing out, that the voter turnout in Bihar was relatively less than last time. However, this time we can hope that it will increase because the fact is several Naxal affected areas in Bihar, the voting time has been increased in these Naxal affected areas as well. So a kind of a praise needs to be given to the election commission. The voting time is between 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. This time in all the constituencies where Bihar will be going to polls. Now, the who's who of Indian politics had descended in Bihar, be it from the Mahagathbandhan or the India bloc or from the NDA as well. PM Modi had several sabhas in Bihar, particularly attacking the CM phase of Mahagathbandhan, that is Tejasvi Yadav, saying that if at all the RJD or Tejasvi Yadav is elected as the CM, the Jungle Raj is bound to.
All right, thank you so much, Arnil, for all those details. But Arnil actually caught up with RJD's Tejasvi Yadav just yesterday. Let's listen into what he had to say.
People of Bihar, they want a change. And this time they are fed up with this government. They have given 20 years to NDA. But still Bihar is the poorest state of this country. Unemployment is the highest in Bihar among other states. There is no factory, there is no industry.
Amit Shah ji बोल रहे हैं अगर आप आ गए तो जंगल राज आएगा. जंगल राज will return.
अमित शाह जी कह रहे हैं कि यहाँ जमीन नहीं है, उससे फैक्ट्री नहीं लग सकती.
All right, but with this fears, it's time now to slip into the latest with respect to Tata Trust. And Meli Mistry, in a letter, announces that he's stepping down as the trustee of Tata Trust. He said that he hopes for a letter to help in putting to rest speculative reports not serving the interest of Tata Trust. My colleague Anurag Joshi is here with more details.
Meli Mistry has stepped down as a trustee of Tata Trust. Mistry's leaving Tata Trust brings down curtains on an acrimonious episode in the history of the trust, which dragged over almost 2 months and led to a rise in bickering among the trustees, and also the trust being divided into two factions. It culminated on October 28 when Mistry's term was supposed to end, and he was seeking a reappointment through a resolution of Tata Trust. And this was voted against by Noel Tata and two other trustees, Venu Srinivasan and Vijay Singh. And this was the reason Meli Mistry could not continue as a trustee of Tata Trust. In the letter he says written to Noel Tata, he says that precipitating matters would cause irreparable damage to the reputation of Tata Trust, and he hopes that the action of other trustees going forward will be guided by the principles of transparency, good governance, and public interest. He often cites Ratan Tata in the letter, calling him his dearest friend and mentor, and says that the letter written to Tata Trust Chair Noel Tata should assist in putting an end to the speculative news reports.
All right, thank you so much for getting us all those details. But on to some of the other stories, wherein Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, talking about India's growth stories, mentions the importance of meeting the fiscal deficit target while focusing on debt to GDP ratio. She also praises PSBs and adds that PSBs are doing great job in terms of NIMs and financial inclusion. Listen in.
Banks stand out exemplarily in terms of the asset quality, in terms of the NIM, in terms of the asset and credit which has got to be done, and also in terms of financial inclusion. That Jan Dhan Yojana, being a very big scheme through the banks, actually took to the last individual banking in India, made them be part of the banking, made them be part of the formalization of the Indian economy.
All right, and Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has unveiled the India AI Governance Guidelines under the India AI Mission. What do the guidelines say? Let me take it across to Sumita, who's here with more details. Sumita.
An AI panel has recommended AI Governance Guidelines report, and it is likely that the government will be considering recommendations of this panel while framing draft guidelines for AI regulation in the country. Now, this, as part of the recommendations, while it includes India-specific risk classification and reporting system, accountability framework that this AI panel has recommended, it recognizes the existence of multiple players and also provides for the availability or involvement of sectoral regulators to be brought in for risk mitigation. In fact, what are the principles of India's AI governance framework? Number one is infrastructure, wherein over 30,231 GPUs are currently being made available to startups and companies. This capacity building, policy and regulation, risk mitigation, accountability, inclusivity, social benefits, institutions, fairness and equity is also part of that. And most importantly, it has to be understandable by design. And these are some of the points that IT Secretary Mr. S. Krishnan also hinted at. He stated that India's approach to AI governance is not leading with regulation. There has to be space which is to be given to, for instance, companies to innovate. Government will be providing adequate time for due diligence by these companies, given the fact that AI technology is very recent, very new, and government will be relying on existing regulation in the meantime to crack down on deep fakes. And we do know that there were some changes that were proposed to the IT Act in light of the government's intent to crack down on deepfakes. And lastly, there will be reasonable restriction that will come in from the government, and that will be key. More importantly, guidelines are intended to be light touch.
All right, thank you so much, Sumita, for getting us all those details. But in some of the earnings, Sun Pharma will be in focus today as the company's numbers just came yesterday. And it's been a decent set for Sun Pharma, majorly in line to what we were expecting at ET now. Definitely in terms of the margins, it's been a steady performance by the company when the company reported an EBITDA margin of 28%, in line to our estimate as well. The revenue saw a jump of 9%, while the profit did grow almost 3% on a YY basis. In terms of the internals, then it's the global innovative medicine portfolio that has definitely surpassed the generics for the very first time during the quarter, and that's one of the key highlights. The sales of innovative medicines, which was earlier termed as specialty sales, that stood at $333 million, seen a jump of 16.5% on a YY basis, and in the overall portfolio now contributes to over 20% of the sales. So that's a key takeaway from Sun Pharma earnings. And along with that, with respect to the US sales, the generic sales over there, that did see a decline of almost 4%, and that was also in line to what we were expecting at ET now. Other than that, in terms of the India portfolio, we have been highlighting that this portfolio can do well, given the fact that the Sun Pharma has been gaining market share. Along with that, there's a new product additions in their overall portfolio, as well as the field for addition. And all these factors aiding in, it's an 11% jump that the company has reported in terms of their India sales. In terms of the management commentary, they do highlight that Illumia has been commercialized in all the targeted geographies and is available in 35 markets globally right now. Innovative R&D did account for 38% of the total R&D spend, representing 10% of the global innovative medicine sales for the quarter. The company remains on track to launch some of their key launches in the second half of FY26, while the R&D is expected to remain at the lower end of 6 to 8% of the guidance that was given earlier, and this time around 5.5% as a percentage of the total sales was the R&D number that the company has reported. So a lower R&D can definitely aid the numbers going ahead. So a decent set, what we can call it, coming in from Sun Pharma. So that's about the earnings. Let's watch out for that. But in some of the other earnings, SBI will be in focus as well, because it's another steady quarter for India's largest lender, SBI. NII and margins did meet the estimates with healthy improvement in asset quality. The bank also crosses 100 lakh crores in the business for the first time. And management says that the industry credit growth may remain at 11 to 12%. But with this, let's go across and listen in. For more details, my colleague Ankur Mishra is joining us.
Yes, State Bank of India Q2 numbers have come better than the expectations, and if you talk about net profit, that is 20,160 crore, while the expectation was around 17,000 crore, and therefore the profit has risen now to around 11% if you compare with last year. Similarly, operating profit is also up 5% YOY to 39,000 9,320 crore. The bulk of the credit also goes to Yes Bank stake sale for the bottom line, whereby the realization of gains has happened in the quarter to the tune of 4,600 crore. The total income has risen to 4.5% to 1,34,979,000 crore. If you talk about the deposits as well as advances, that has shown a decent growth this quarter. Deposits grew by 8% to 55.9 lakh crore, and loan book has risen to around 13% YOY to 43.6 lakh crore. Overall, if you add both, the business has crossed 100 trillion or 100 lakh crore. If you talk about NIMs, that has also shown improvement QOQ. That has remained at 2.97%, which is better than the last quarter, while the domestic NIMs have been over 3%. CASA ratio is also stable near 40%. If you talk about the guidance from the bank is expecting that the loan growth could be between 12 to 14% range versus the 11 to 12% guidance which was there earlier. Similarly, if you talk about the deposits repricing, that can be finished in next 2 months. But more importantly, the bank is confident of maintaining margins, and they are expecting that they are going to end the year over 3%.
All right, thank you so much, Ankur, for all of the details. But Ankur actually also spoke with SBI's chairman, C.S. Setty. Let's go across and listen into an excerpt.
I think these milestones are milestones, of course. There are next milestones to move on to. But broadly, our guidance is that we would like to maintain NIM above 3 through the cycle, and ROA of 1% through the cycle. And we have revised our credit growth guidance based on the prevailing credit environment. We believe that 11 to 12% guidance what we have given, we are moving to 12 to 14% guidance, and we are able to contain our credit costs, maintaining the asset quality of this nature at that scale. I think is, in our view, we have done fair job in terms of growth as well as in terms of the asset quality, and the trend is likely to continue for next 2 quarters too.
When you say about credit growth of 12 to 14%, one part of the results where you see the corporate credit, it is still in the single digit. Do you see that in the second half that pickup can be there?
Yes, I think for the first time after so many quarters, barring March quarter generally, which gets a lot of growth, we were able to reverse that negative trend in the corporate credit, and almost with a very large corporate book, we were able to grow as much as the industry had grown. That number one. Number two, with almost 7 lakh crore pipeline what we have, we have confidence that we should be able to have a double-digit corporate credit growth in the next 2 quarters.
When you say double-digit corporate credit growth, what should we one expect on the retail front? Because if you talk about currently, that is growing more than 15%. If I talk about some of the pockets, you mentioned about the auto loans as well, that has seen recovery. Where do you see that kind of growth happening in the second half?
Most of these sectors, I think, will continue, at least for Q3. Q4 we need to see. Q3 generally is a strong quarter for everyone. And Q4, as the year ends, a lot of sales happen and credit growth happens. If Q3, our view is that as far as what we are seeing now, most of these growth rates what we witnessed in Q2 are possible in these segments in Q3 too.
Talking about net interest margins, you had guided earlier that U type of recovery will be there on the margins. Now it has come 1 quarter early, if I remember correctly. So do you think that by the end of the year that 3% plus run rate will be possible and we can even improve from here?
We are still sticking to the guidance that exit NIM would be above 3%. I think, yes, you're right. I said that from Q3 onwards there will be an upward trend. What we have done in Q2 is a balanced approach towards wholesale deposits, which had helped us to bring down the cost of resources significantly. And we also have seen that our current account and savings account balances, daily average balance, not only the quarter end growth rates, have been robust. This has helped us to contain the costs on the deposit side, and this gives our confidence, and also the full benefit of CRR reduction will be available by November end.
All right, moving on, let's talk about Hindalco then, because Hindalco will be in focus after Novelis' weak Q2 results, with adjusted EBITDA down 9% YOY on higher scrap prices and tariff pressures, while the volumes did remain flat. Margins softened while the capex for some of their key projects has surged. Let me take it across to Ashesha for more details.
Well, yes, Hindalco's wholly owned subsidiary Novelis has reported weaker than expected set of numbers. In fact, EBITDA for the quarter gone by declined by about 9% on a year-on-year basis. One, on account of tariff, and second, also on account of lower scrap prices in the quarter gone by. So that weighed heavy on numbers. As far as EBITDA per ton is concerned, that came in at about $448 per ton versus $432 that the company had reported in the previous quarter. So slight improvement on a sequential basis. But despite that, on a year-on-year basis, EBITDA per ton has declined and shipments have largely remained flat on a year-on-year basis. Now, as you mentioned, capex has risen, and that is likely to be a big negative for the stock today. Remember, Bay Minette capacity expansion plan is underway. It is likely to be commissioned sometime next fiscal. The capex earlier was at about $4.1 billion. That has now risen by 22%, and the management is guiding for a total capex of $5 billion for this particular project. The management also says that 50% of this $900 million increase is on account of inflation, and the balance is on account of the project-related costs given the scale of the capacity expansion plan that the company has. So yes, this is likely to be a major negative for the stock today. Apart from this, as far as the fire incident that took place some time ago, the management said that this is likely to weigh heavy on EBITDA to the tune of 100 to 150 million US dollars, and negative free cash flow impact of about, say, 550 to 650 million dollars, and this is likely in the second half of this year. Meanwhile, Nuvama has come out with a report. They say that they are not expecting any kind of earnings recovery in the second half of this year, and perhaps earnings could only recover in FY27. So brokerage houses clearly are not very bullish when it comes to outlook, at least for the remainder of this year. Capex plan cost increase is a major negative, and earnings have also been soft this quarter.
All right, thank you so much, Ashesha, for getting us all those details. So definitely we'll watch out for Hindalco in trade today, but in some of the other earnings, it's Indico as well, which will be in focus. And this time around, it's been a decent set coming in for Indico, while in terms of the top line, the revenue has come in line to what we were expecting, while the margins in terms of their EBITDA has come in at 6% below our estimates. But the company did report a net loss figure. The reported loss stands at 2,582 crores, but that was hit due to the forex loss of close to 2,890 crores that the company has reported. Now, in terms of their CASK, that percentage has risen by almost 9%. The depreciation did also rise 26% on the YY basis, while the interest expenses did rise by 18%. But apart from the numbers, the key takeaway for Interglobe Aviation is actually the raise in their guidance, where the company has gone ahead and raised their FY26 capacity growth guidance to mid-teens from low double digits. Along with that, the company guided for a high teens capacity growth in the second half of FY26. The company did guide for and aims for a 30 to 40% of its fleet owned or under finance lease by 2030. Those are the big targets. And passenger RASK may see flat to slight growth YOY in quarter 3. So the raise in the guidance is one of the key takeaways coming in from Interglobe Aviation. The brokerages too are seen to be giving a thumbs up to that. While we talk about Elara, they reiterate their buy rating, raise the target price from 6,878 rupees to 7,241 rupees. So all eyes will be indeed on Interglobe Aviation. There's been a one-time hit on their bottom line, and hence the loss. It's because of the higher forex expenses that the company did report. But moving on to another story then, and big leadership changes at Birla Opus Paints, wherein CEO Rakshit Harkaway has resigned to pursue the opportunities outside the company and will exit on December 5. Meanwhile, Britannia Industries has appointed Mr. Harkaway as additional whole-time director and CEO for the 5 years. So interesting developments there. But let me take it across to my colleague Snehi, who's joined in with more details. Snehi, over to you.
Well, yes, so along with the earnings of Grasim, the big announcement coming in was from their paint segment, which is Birla Opus, because Mr. Rakshit Hargave, who's the CEO or who was the CEO of Birla Opus Paints, has resigned to pursue an external opportunity, which we now understand is at Britannia. He will exit the organization effective 5th December this year. And remember, he joined the company in November of 2021, and he's played a key role in the scale-up of Birla Opus because under him, 6 integrated manufacturing facilities were established and distribution and supply chains networks were also scaled nationwide. So he's had a meaningful role at Birla Opus. Now remember that Mr. Himanshu Kampania, who's the MD of the Grasim Industries overall, he will directly see the paints business till a new CEO is appointed. Now let's talk about what lies ahead for Mr. Rakshit Hargave. He is now going to join Britannia Industries, where he has been appointed as an additional whole-time director and CEO for a tenure of 5 years, and this is going to be beginning from 15th of December this year. Now, despite all of this management rejig happening at Birla Opus, they continue to maintain their FY28 revenue target of 10,000 crores for the paints biz, so that guidance has been maintained. They aim to achieve the second position in the paints market share and profitability within 3 years of full-scale operations, and the company also expects to reach double-digit standalone market share by Q4 of FY26 or Q1 FY27. So this guidance has been maintained despite the management rejig happening. But well, yes, the top boss at Birla Opus has now made his way to Britannia Industries.
All right, thank you so much, Snehi, for highlighting all those details. But with this, let's also shift focus to some of the companies related to North America Class 8 truck net orders, when this time around in the month of October, the North America Class 8 net orders totaled almost 24,300 units. That's a rise of 18% on a month-on-month basis, but a decline of 22% on a YY basis. Now, this is the consecutive 10th month wherein we have seen a decline, and the numbers are way below the 10-year October average as well. So definitely not a great set on the North America Class 8 net orders. This seems to be impacting some of the companies like Bharat Forge, RK Forging, GNA Axis as well. And this is as per FTR that we are getting to have this particular data. So we will be watching out for these counters in today's trading session. But with this, viewers, let's move on to another story then. And a major block deal took place in RBL Bank in about 3.5% of the bank's equity. The floor price was set at a 2.1% discount to the last NSE close, valuing the deal at over 680 crores. Anurag Joshi joins in with more details.
Conglomerate Mahindra & Mahindra is unwinding its more than 2-year-old financial investment in RBL Bank. In July 2023, Mahindra & Mahindra had bought a 3.53% equity stake in RBL Bank for 417 crore rupees. It is unwinding this stake and selling the stake through a block deal today at up to 682 crore rupees, and the price at which it is selling is at 317 rupees per share. And now this translates to 3.45% of the total equity holding of RBL Bank. RBL Bank was recently in the news as Emirates NBD, a leading UAE lender, bought a majority stake in the bank and has infused over $3 billion of capital in the bank. The sale of its stake by Mahindra & Mahindra in RBL Bank is reflective of a growing trend of investors cashing out due to favorable market conditions in the local equity markets.
All right, thank you so much for getting us all those details. But with this, viewers, we are completely timed out in this edition of Market Cafe. It's a goodbye from me and the entire team who put this show together. Thank you so much for tuning in.